Guess what?
We're professionals.
Yeah, we are professionals, and we're together.
We are
Ah.
reunited, and it feels so good.
This is probably the first time that we've actually been in the same place doing a live stream for like a couple of years now.
Yep.
Yay, Kev, it's over.
I also like the fact that every time one of us looks at the camera, one of us looks away.
We should do that. So first of all, it's a new setup. Well, not new, but I've got a different mic so you can hear us both. And
Can they?
yeah, that's the first thing. Can you hear us? That's an impressive split.
There is a pretty good split screen. I can't read that. You're in charge of comments.
Can I just make it bigger? There we go. We don't need to know
There we go. Hello, Roderick. Hello, Dustin.
How are you doing this evening? So I presume everybody can hear us loud and clear, and hopefully when we're screen sharing, you'll be able to hear us as well. Good evening, Gerard.
If you can't hear us, just press your nose.
No. So we're a bit doolally because we've been in each other's company all day, basically.
All day.
Yeah.
Hello, Tommy. Yeah, it's been a pleasant, productive, and long day.
Yeah.
Which is why we're guzzling coffee. Well, my coffee's off screen. It's over here.
Which you can get at any point, by the way.
Yeah.
Feel free. I allow it.
Oh, good.
So yes, we've been playing a lot around with Godot RC1, Godot 4, RC1. So the release candidate has come out. So we're deep in the weeds with assets.
Well, release candidate 1's out. Now, it's not the official release of Godot. It's the pre-champagne launch, but it's still the official release. But it's not the official release. There's still bugs. Help us fix it.
Yeah.
So this feels like a
Definitely,
good time to start actually getting ready to record the new content.
Woo! I've got notes.
C#.
Okay.
D flat.
Yeah. So we're in line with our notes so far.
Yeah.
We're talking about Godot 4 and the release candidate 1. So the release candidate 1, we have... Oh, hi, Mudsup.
I read it.
So we have been playing with it all day, and Jan's been playing with it all week, which is Monday. I mean, like, since it came out, right? Too much coffee. And we've done a little bit of a test today, and we want to show you around what we've put together today, just testing out some various things, how we want to take some of the assets, direction which we want to take them with the...
I feel like we've skipped an important chunk.
Yeah, probably. I'm really excited.
So with Godot 4, there are two major projects that are due to start at the same time, which means I'm going to have to back and forth a bit. And some of it's going to require some stuff from Mikey first. So that's really what today's about. The two big projects are Godot for Everyone, which is our successor to Discovering Godot. It's the beginner to intermediate course for Godot 4. And we'll have a series of modules, each one of which is its own game that teaches you a series of skills. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one is actually starting recording on the Your Godot Action RPG project, which has a whole bunch of different things that have to go. And one of the bottlenecks there is we're using assets being made in the Blender courses and in the music courses, so we can't really start working on them without those. So it's prioritizing what's going to be happening with those.
Yeah.
So, as we were doing that, I said to Mikey, can I see some of your dungeon assets you've made so far? I went, yeah. And we looked at them, we brought them in. They're a bit flat. And Mikey's like, well, I don't really want to do the brickwork you had before, because it's a lot of vertices we don't need. So we started playing around in Material Maker, which we had loaded up on the screen, and then we switched the computer off, and now it's loaded up on the screen, so Mikey has to go open it. So Mikey, do you want to talk a little bit about the Material Maker that is totally open? So
Material Maker is actually made in Godot, which is...
Or Godot.
Or Godot, if you prefer. And I'm just trying to find it here. So Material Maker is it's a free tool as well. And obviously you can contribute as well. I'm just going to look for it again. So I've got the URL. So I think it's just materialmaker.com. To be quite honest, I don't think it was anything particular. .org. So materialmaker.org. So you guys know what we're talking about. Let's get that over in the chat. Although
you'll have seen it a while back.
Yes. So Material Maker, we played around with it today and was able to make roughly what the walls were before, with keeping the walls just as a single plane. Now we're not planning on keeping the walls completely flat, because it does...
This was a quick... Let's see what we can knock together in a few minutes.
Exactly, yes.
And how good can we make it look? Should we show them how good we can make it look?
Yes, let's
go.
go.
That was a weird way of saying that.
Yes, well, we can switch screens over into Godot. and it's this button here. Doo-doo. So this is in Godot 4. These are in-work assets, and the walls themselves, Godot 4 actually has depth, which is fantastic. So
in a depth map.
As in a depth map and a normal map. So this is just a normal map and a height map on the screen itself. It's not final or anything along those lines, and we use the same one on the floor, and we brought in some of the new vault assets as well, and it really starts to bring everything together.
Yeah. And little touches that God of War can do, like if you watch the particles for the torches that I put together in like a minute and a half, they're not good, but they're a start. The way it sort of randomly sways with breeze that doesn't actually exist just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, I really like that. And you can tell this is assets in the making because these two things intersect.
Yeah. This is all very, like, proof of concept. Let's see what we can do.
We just grabbed a load of things, brought them into Godot 4, playing around with the volumetrics as well and the fog on the floor. And it's really starting to bring things to life. And I'm really surprised how stable it's been since we've been playing with it today as well.
They've made phenomenal progress with this. I'm a little stuck still on how to use the ambient light properly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. Roderick says they might not be good, but something fast. But they're fast. Yes, they came out well.
Yes. Yeah, we just putting stuff together. We had to stop ourselves several times today whilst we were playing with it. We're like, oh, no, we need to get everything ready for the stream rather than improving
was
stuff.
Proof of concept rather than finished product. So let's talk a little bit about the Godot Action RPG. Now, we've already had a bunch of the Blender courses released. And
there's been a couple of those out. Yep.
And the music one as well, I believe.
Yes, the LMMS.
The
LUMS course. Yep, making music for beginners.
So this will be the first of the Godot ones. And the reason we're doing this is the dungeon assets are already in production.
Yep.
So it's a good starting point. So your Godot Action 4 RPG course to start recording will be procedural dungeons. Will the course go for Material Maker as well? That's a great question, Dustin.
Yes, we were talking about this today, and we think yes. We don't know which one of us will be doing it yet. But in terms of understanding Material Maker, it's very, very similar to the shading workspace in Blender.
Yep.
Where you simply put a load of stuff together and output your final material.
Without any documentation or ever having played with it before, we got it looking like this in...
10 minutes total, including import.
Yeah.
So it's a very straightforward to use program, and in fact, it's much easier than the Blender shader workspace because it comes with some presets like brickwork. So we just dragged in a different blockwork. So this looks roughly what we want to see.
An interesting question will be when you say the course. We should point out that although there is a large course and a large what's the word? Bucket of courses? No.
We're going to be covering multiple things, and much like how the Blender Creative Suite is in individual compartments. So if you already have a knowledge of Godot in this case, you can just pick up where you want to within the course itself, and each individual section will be a standalone section with all the assets necessary provided within it itself.
But where I'm going with this is the Material Maker probably won't be in the Godot course.
Yeah.
It'll be in the Asset Maker course.
Yeah.
Because that's what you'll be doing. You'll be making the assets.
Yeah.
Unless we do it as a tiny free mini course.
Maybe.
Which we haven't decided yet.
We haven't actually produced a syllabus for Material Maker because we dived on it today.
As we're doing a course on how to make the assets, if we're going to be using Material Maker as part of the pipeline, that's going in there somewhere.
Definitely.
What that looks like, we're not entirely sure yet, but that's the plan. The plan is going to be to get the assets ready for the course, get the course out to our Lifetime Toucans and our early access backers on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And once they've had a chance to look over it, make sure it's all good and the quality's fine, to release it to everybody else. We're going to start recording that pretty soon. Before we do that, though, we need the rest of the assets.
Yeah. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be putting together assets. And I think now will be a good time to just jump into not a timeline. Next week, we'll be able to give you a better idea of timeline itself once we're actually deep into this. However, with the assets themselves, we are not only making assets in Blender, we're also making sure that they work over into Godot as well. So if you've bought an asset pack or the asset pack came part of your bundle, or if you want to buy an asset pack in future, it will work straight away in Godot. That's what we're aiming for.
Now, we've just introduced new information for people who weren't part of the Kickstarter.
Yes.
Let's talk about the difference between the assets you get in the course and the asset pack. So if you buy, let's say, this first your Godot Action RPG procedural dungeon course, right, you will be given the assets you need to make this work.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's going to be an asset pack that is completely optional. You don't need it. It'll give you a bunch of extra assets.
Yeah.
But if you want those, you can spend, I mean, we have a very rough internal price that I don't know it's safe to go through yet, but a small amount of money to get. And if you don't want them, you don't miss out.
Yes.
Right? We're not trying to penalise you for not giving us extra money. It's just, here's some extra stuff if you want it.
Yeah, we want to make a fully fledged asset pack. So if you want to use the assets anywhere else, you can as well. As part of each individual, like the dungeon, the overworld, they're going to be roughly around 50 assets to maybe 100 for the overworld, because that'll include maybe the village and some nature assets as well.
And that's also for people who want to use these assets but don't want to take the course. Like, you just spend the whatever it is, and here's some assets, you can use them, they're yours.
Yeah. In terms of whether you get it through the course or whether you buy the assets individually, the licensing is going to be incredibly free with it. Basically, the only stipulation is that you cannot put it into another asset pack.
Yeah.
So you'll be free to use them commercially, privately, however you
don't
want.
Even need to credit us. I mean, it'd be lovely if you do, but
you
don't need
always.
to.
That would be lovely. So yeah, the assets will be all Godot ready. For those, obviously, we appreciate other people use different engines as well in the asset packs. My personal goal is to make them Unity and Unreal compatible, which they will be.
I didn't know Unreal could do 3D.
It's got this nanite thing now, so it's all good.
Yeah,
it surpassed 3D.
We want it to make everybody accessible to everybody who wants to use it.
Yeah. And part of the asset pack itself, there'll be the blend file as well, so you don't have to worry about importing the asset into Blender. It'll all be there, and you can export it into various other options rather than. I think I will do the standard. There'll be GLTF and there'll be OBJ in some instances. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, why not?
Because it's deprecated and not useful for game development?
I don't know. I've seen other people do OBJ, maybe.
Fine, go for it. I mean, it's...
There are problems with OBJ, like the centre of your model is the centre of the scene. You can't actually determine a pivot point and things like that. So it might not be worthwhile asset-wise doing OBJ.
I mean, there's ways around it, yes. But yeah.
FBX can have... well, basically, when we export them, we don't just want a raw FBX that then you have to tweak in individual game engines. So... or GLTFs. So we'll get them ready in Godot so you can literally open up a project with those assets in it and just import it straight in and start using it. So if your asset requires collision, that will also already be set up for you. So almost drag and drop. And of course, for Unity and Unreal, they've got their own assets standard. So it'll all be set up and it will be a Unity asset or a U asset for Unreal. So
the idea is, with an asset pack, it just works. That's the goal.
That's the idea.
Because most of the asset packs I've seen out there are for Unity or for Unreal, it means if you're working in Godot, there's a lot of tweaking you have to do. Or more accurately, there's some extra steps you have to go through. There's not that much. But
pivot points in the wrong place.
Scale, modifiers, stuff like that. And Godot 4 is better at importing that stuff, but you still have to know how to do it. It's nice to have an asset that just works.
Speaking from experience, it's annoyed us no end. We appreciate there are free asset makers out there. We praise Kenny, Quaternius.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I think Kenny is actually starting to focus on Godot now. But whether or not they apply that to their back catalogue, who knows. But we want to start from the offset with our assets being compatible with Godot primarily, and in the long run, Unity and Unreal as well. And as I say, the Blender file will be provided, so you'll have the raw data there that you can go in and start playing around with.
Right. So just to make it very clear, you do not need the asset pack. You do not need to buy it. You do not need it to complete the course. You don't need to make it look good.
Yeah.
If you want the extra stuff and you want to go that extra mile, you should be using it. When it comes to recording the content, I will start off by showing the difference between what's in the asset pack purchase and what comes with the course. I will be making it with the asset pack stuff because I've got access to it and I want to.
It'll be prettier. It'll be
However,
a
when we
full
go into
experience.
the next few courses, we're going to give you the stuff we made in the previous course.
Yeah.
And that will be a version without all the extra stuff, because otherwise you just get that for free, and that's nonsense.
We did discuss that later, because how can you share a project and not share a project? So
Right.
It's challenging. You can package things up, but ultimately things are always take-outable.
Yep.
And also then you wouldn't have a full asset pack. You'd have things missing anyway, which would be just bizarre.
I should point out we still have that screen in front of us, and I keep wanting to tweak it and play with the lights and the colours. It's a lot of fun.
This is what they can see just over there.
I know.
Yeah.
What can we switch screens for a second?
Yep.
One of the things I want to point out is there's some very basic lighting theory going on here, and that's going to be covered in this course as well. Like, it's not a course on lighting, but just techniques to make the environment look good, the colours, where the light sources can come from.
I've broken the illusion, Jan.
He's broken it.
I should only face this way.
It's broken. But one thing we can do, if we come out of full screen,
Yep.
if you go to doorway wall 2 and scroll down and just hide the 2 torches, and then back into full screen, and suddenly we have a very different feeling scene. And one thing you can see, you're gonna have to drive.
Yeah.
One thing you can see is the doorway on the left here is a lot spookier and stuff. But it's just using that little subtle blue light to draw people in, draw players in, that kind of highlighting.
So yes, and of course this is done a lot in games. If it's a game where you're supposed to climb on a certain surface, it might have it highlighted in yellow or something along those lines. Alternatively, you often get lights. So this be bad way over here on the left, and this is the way you're supposed to be going, because it's brightly lit and it's guiding you towards it. So there's lots of things you can do with lights, not only make the whole thing look good, but also guide the player.
Yep. And frankly, I just think it looks great. Like, Godot 4 just looks good. There's a very subtle fog effect going on at the bottom there. You can just see the stuff on the floor. I love the new, I always say it wrong, GLFI? The new rendering system.
Yes,
is stunning.
It's really brought Godot up. It really has.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, this is just a quick little mock-up scene. Now, there is another thing that we're going to be working on at the same time, which also requires some assets. You should probably flip back to our facebound now.
Yep. There we go. Press the right one.
So the other thing is Godot for everyone.
What is Godot for everyone?
Well, it's Godot, and it's for everyone. Asterisk. Limited definition of everyone. So the idea is again a modular course that goes from the very, very, very basics. Here is Godot. Here's where the things are. Here's what a variable is. Here's what a function is. Here's what a condition is. The way to... I mean, we're not going to be doing network online multiplayer because that's very complex in advance. But we'll certainly be going into 3D.
Yeah. And for those who have been around for a while, Discovering Godot was the first beginner's course, and the Godot for everyone will be the second beginner's course.
Now, the reason we want to make it modular is there is a decent chance that you've used Godot before and you don't really need to be told what a function is. Maybe you want to buy it just to see what the difference in the scripts are, but that's fine. You could buy the bundle, which will have this course, the first course, the second course, and all the others, or you could just say, no, I'm going to have a more a la carte experience. I want this one, this one, this one. I don't care about Minesweeper or PySweeper, and I don't care about the first course. Now, originally we said this wasn't going to be part of the course, but we decided actually it's a good starting point. We're going to start, the very first one is going to be Rock, Paper, Toucan. It's
a great introduction. It's got conditional statements in it, so beginners will get right into the nitty-gritty of making decisions.
As a game, it's very, very... It's not that satisfying for more than a couple of minutes.
Yep.
But the idea is you get to pick rock, paper, or scissors. The computer says, you've picked this, I pick this, declare the winner, and then a start again button.
Yeah.
The key here, for an education point of view, is showing how to make this a lot more modular, I guess is the word. So instead of just having the variables in there, let's use export variables, and then we can tell it it's not rock, paper, scissors, it's feint, grab, punch.
I thought you were going to go rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock for a moment.
Well, that's the next bit I'm going to talk about.
Oh.
So we can make it a much more flexible environment. And then after we go into that, let's go into what happens if you want to expand it beyond 3 options. What happens if you want to do rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock? which changes how many times you can hit ties, but we also need to put extra conditions. Actually, it's quite easy to do that. And then from there, let's switch from if conditions to match statements because they're much smoother.
Yeah.
Will every node be explored in the Godot course? I don't know. Most of them will. I haven't designed the course around each node. So I don't have a checklist of each node and going, oh, we need to use occlusion 3D. Let's put it in there. I suspect most of them will be.
But we don't want to just cover a node or try and shoehorn a node in specifically to make sure that it's included. Most of the time, most things are covered.
A fair chunk of them will be covered. It's a completely valid way to approach this kind of system, and I know for a while Kids Can Code did exactly that, right? I can't remember what he called it, but it was
it's almost like an encyclopedia approach. You just go through and
explaining each node.
Yeah.
The way we're doing it is more project based. So the first project is going to be the idea was let's teach the basics of Godot and of programming while keeping things like graphics to an absolute minimum, right? I don't care about inputs and controls. I don't care about characters and physics. I just want the basics. And once we've got that, we can move into the next one. In this case, it's going to be Space Invaders, which is a Space Invaders clone, and that gives us basic physics, at least a character body. It gives us areas, it gives us signals, it gives us groups. Actually, we cover signals and groups in the previous one. It covers stuff like that.
Redoing stuff is an integral part of learning. So thank you very much.
We just read that you're the most lovable. I'm too far away to read the screen properly, so I'm not going to butcher your name, but thank you so much.
Yes, it means a lot to us. One of the things is we always try to approach in a project-based way. I've done both. I've been through, and by all means, having a checklist of things, almost like a series of shorts explaining what this thing does and how you use it, is actually enough for someone to then take it. If they're someone who is good at picking up things and just making their own curriculum, but that's a very small subset of people, especially if you're brand new to Godot or Blender. And one of the things that I've come across is I like those videos. How do I use this tool again? And I've got a 3-minute video that explains it in detail. I've tried doing some of these things and I'm like, how about I get the extrude tool in Blender, a very simple tool on the surface, until you realise there are 4 different extrude types, and by the time you've actually gone through and explained how you use each one of those extrude types, you've spent an awfully long time talking about extruding.
Sorry.
And that basically that's very dry. You're not using it in a practical manner. You're seeing how the tool works. So if you're someone who prefers a more instruction book type way of doing something, it's going to, that's not our style of teaching. Our style is very much, we're going to make this, whether it's a game or a model, let's discuss the various ways you can approach it. Sometimes I've done projects in Blender where I've taken a completely different approach to making a model. Rather than just extruding, insetting, scaling, and doing all that basic stuff, I've tried doing it a different way just to learn new techniques. And sometimes you end up with very fast techniques, but they tend to be context sensitive. So
that's usually,
it widens your toolkit.
There's usually multiple ways of solving the same problem in anything to do with, any creative aspect.
Yeah.
But they're not always suitable for every situation. Suraj Yoti, I'm sorry if I just butchered your name. I hope I got it mostly right. We're actually talking about what is effectively not a reboot, but the version of Discovering Godot for Godot 4. And the reason we didn't just want to make it a reboot was that so much has changed, it actually feels like it deserves a clean slate. Rather than people saying, I'll just do what I did last time, that bit's not working. Let's actually start over.
Yes, and actually focus on what Godot 4 is good at rather than going through the same thing. And I fully get this, I've tried it going from Blender 2 to Blender 3. Some things are just different, or some things are named something different. And so just trying to replace the curriculum in another version doesn't always work.
That said, we are looking to do the same kind of teaching, the same kind of coverage. Some of the games will be different. To talk you through the games we have so far, we have Rock, Paper, Toucan, which is Rock, Paper, Scissors, Space Invader, Pie Sweeper, which is Minesweeper, because it actually teaches quite a lot of there's some interesting problems to solve there that aren't immediately obvious, and it's just little things like getting a tile map reference from a mouse position is a useful skill. It really helps. Or how do you remove all the contingent ones unless there's a number, right? Things like that. Useful skills. From there, we go to Spooky Bricks, which is going to be Tukey Bricks, but I wanted to put a bat in it. And then we go into 3D with Tukey Kickabout, which is a local multiplayer 3D soccer game.
Yeah.
And then we haven't got the next 3D projects down yet, but we'll be moving into 3D.
Yes. Where possible as well, we want to be...
there might be a platform game we haven't decided yet.
Yes. Big question on platform game. Because we've kind of covered the same sort of stuff going through the Godot curriculum.
Stuff. Like, we've covered things like control movements, we'll have covered physics. What we won't have covered is things like pickups, lives, stuff like that. So we could probably get away with not putting a platform, but it feels like there should be a platform in there.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the assets thing.
Before we carry on, I've got a new cable, and your foot's very close to it. I don't want them to lose our our microphone.
Guess what I'm going to do now? No.
Bye, everybody.
All right, I'll stop crossing my leg. All right. We want to make assets so that when you've got the course, you get the stuff you need, but also some extra things that you can have if you want that you can just drop into your own games. Or maybe you're making Spooky Bricks and you don't want a bat in it, you want a penguin. And we already have this, I guess, pantheon of characters, right? We have Tukey, the toucan. We have Avery and Annie Bunny, who made their appearance on Hoppy Days, although I hadn't called them that at the time.
Yeah.
We have Legit Penguin, who's a legit penguin, and Space Duck. We have Boris the Bat, and we have Low Polly the Parrot.
Yeah.
What I would like to do is, by the time we get to, let's say, Space Invaducks, have different character packs where you could just swap them out. So if you want ducks, have ducks. If you'd rather have bunnies, have bunnies.
I mean, one of the things this has come from is we've had feedback that it can be a bit stale if everybody's using the same assets and creating the same sort of output at the end, and some people don't want to share their stuff because it's exactly the same as the last person.
Right.
If you're following along with the course, when we say can you share your work, we genuinely want to see what you're up to, because as distanced instructors, it's impossible to know how someone's getting on unless they're saying.
It's one of the okay. So I used to teach undergrads in the States, and it was really clear to see what was working, what wasn't, and you could change your teaching on the fly because you'd walk in and you just count how many people are bored. Right? It's really easy.
How many of them are asleep?
You can't do that in a video.
Yeah.
So it's lovely to hear that you guys are enjoying it and that you find us lovable rascals, etc. And we want to make it so that you've got all these tools. And if you want to make a game with a bunny, have Avery and Annie. There's character pack. So what that's going to mean is going through with Libra Sprite or A Sprite and making standardized sprite sheets. Right? So it should be as simple as, I've got this sprite sheet, I want to change it for that one, I'll drop it in, everything still works, I don't have to change a single line of code or a single node, right? However, to do that, we need to sit down and make them. So we need, like, idle, walk, the rest of it.
This is one of the things that we are very keen on, especially if we've got assets that are supposed to work together, that they do work together. I don't suppose
you've got Spooky Bricks or Space Invaducks on this drive, have you? We didn't plan this in advance.
No, I did think I did down.
I should have kicked the cable.
That wouldn't have helped. What do I want? Downloads. Have I left it in my downloads? Otherwise, the answer's no.
Okay, fine. So the good news is these aren't particularly difficult to make once you've got the standard pattern down and you've got the basics done. Oh, Tukey Kickabout. Let's do Tukey Kickabout.
I mean, we can.
Yes. No. That's the wrong folder.
I'm a professional. Is this load it up in Godot?
Yeah.
Okay. So bear with us a moment.
Project.
There we go.
Quit to project list.
Save and quit. This is exciting TV.
It's great.
Oh, has it crashed? Has it crashed?
Maybe.
Hey!
This is exciting.
It's a crashed. It's a crashed. There we go. We've crashed it for the first time today.
Hunter. No. I'm going to be writing in GDScript. I want to be very, very clear about this in advance. C, writing in C is a great skill for the most part, you don't actually need to do it. Like, unless you're doing incredibly intensive AI stuff and things where you need that kind of raw processing power, GDScript can handle it just fine. As for visual scripting, I'll be honest, I've never found a use case where I've wanted to use it. My problem with visual scripting is, in order to use visual scripting, you have to know the nodes and how the scripting language works, at which point it's faster to type it. I know the idea is you can just you just give it to someone who doesn't know code and they can do it, but that's not true. They have to know how to code. They just don't type it. They do it visually. So, no. Oh, visual scripting is gone. It's not in Godot 4. So, you're right. I forgot about that. That's another good reason not to do that. Let's say I did that one first. Thank you, Dustin.
So I'm not sure if this is going to have whether it's got music in it or not.
It does.
It does. So this might sound horrible, but let's switch over, and I'm going to press play. It's assuming it works, of course.
Give it a second.
So prototype as always.
Oh, you've only got the one-player one.
Have I?
No, you haven't. You should have the full screen. What resolution are you using?
1080p. I'm going to be low poly.
No, it's changed. Oh yeah, no, that's all changed since then.
Okay, so a great example here. Let's move back to our talking heads rather than the Crash Godot. This is actually one of the reasons why we've been waiting, because things have changed. This was only 2 months ago, I think, or something like that.
4 months ago, yeah.
But anyway, it just shows you how much has changed just in the short time that we had before, a long time ago. So what's that? Yeah. Oh, I've just opened it, so it's got
today.
It's today. It's changed today.
I got it working on mine, but I did actually make some changes, so that's fair.
Yeah. That was back in September. Tell a lie, it wasn't a couple of months ago, it was a few. But yes, it is frustrating when stuff like that happens, which is why we've waited for now. And we've got so much energy now. Godot is actually in its release candidate stage. It basically means it's feature locked. They're not going to change their names of the functions that they've used, which is great. Real pain in the backside when they decide to do something like that. And it should mean that they're just squashing bugs now. Yeah, squish.
I wish they're very open. It still will be some. It won't be as smooth as 3.1 for a little while because it takes a while to get something that smooth. But yeah, that was the intro to 2 Key Kickabout, where there's 2 players, and I wanted to make the whole thing feel very cartoony and has this wonderful stupid house soundtrack and a little tiny pitch and this ball, and it's very funny.
Yes.
Local multiplayer game.
It's a very simple game, and it's one that we came up with.
First time we met.
Yeah, we sat down, we game jammed. Basically, I made some quick football assets. You went on the coding side of things.
It came about with, how easy is it to get Blender stuff into Godot? Well, I've got this cube dude, right? 4 hours later, we had a game.
Yeah, and it was surprisingly enjoyable and bug-ridden, but the bugs were a lot of fun.
The bugs were great.
There was a bug, by the time you scored and the new game started and reset, you could rescore. So there was
a 1 second timer between scoring and the level reset, so you could actually see that you scored. But then people figured out that if you bounce the ball off the back of the net, you could keep doing it.
Infinite goals.
And that became the game, right? How many times can you score?
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
It was great. And that's about as far as we've got in the 3D stuff. Yes! Hello, Todd. We're in the same place.
Ah. We are.
I mean, look, there's a ton of great languages for game programming. There's a ton of great engines. I'm going to be focusing on GDScript, 1, because it's the out-of-the-box one for Godot, and 2, it's the one I'm most comfortable with, right? Yes, we could absolutely, we could just do raw Python if we wanted to. We could do Rust. We could do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't see the general benefit for that. Now, there are people who prefer to write in the C languages, and that's cool.
Yeah.
It's not my area of expertise. It's of the 2, I'd rather just use the GDScript.
It is arguably easier to learn GDScript and Python because of the way that they're quite natural in their language that they use. If something is not in this dictionary, you can type in if this is not in, well, this is a keyword, but if object is not in dictionary, then it's very easy to write, it's very easy to talk about, because you're not having to convert symbols and other things on screen.
I like not having
Syntax.
to deal with curly brackets. I like not having to manually import libraries, although extending is very similar.
Yeah. But of course, indentation can be just as confusing.
Right.
As...
To be honest, these are personal preferences.
Yeah.
They are not inherent qualities of goodness and badness. There are a ton of great ways to make games, and a ton of great programs and languages and engines, and you should just use the ones you like best. I happen to like Godot best and GDScript best, so that's what I'm teaching.
I did hear about some rumours that visual scripting might be added at a later point. I've played quite a bit with visual scripting, both in blueprints with Unreal Engine, and also with the original visual scripting that was in Godot. I personally thought the Godot implementation was rough around the edges, shall we say.
Well, it was put in by, from what I understand, and this is all third-party, or third-hand knowledge, it was put in by some people who were very passionate about it, and then they moved on to other projects within the Godot thing, and it was never quite finished.
It did feel half-baked. The bits that were there worked, but not everything was there, which made it very difficult to visually program if then you had to hop back into code.
Either way, to go back into what Hunter just said, even if it's added in later, I'm not currently planning on teaching visual scripting.
Yeah.
Because I don't really see a good use case for it. It's always felt cleaner and faster to type it than it is to represent it visually. Now, that could change in the future. This is not a promise that I will never touch it. Yeah. This is, currently, it's not planned.
I mean, the same's true of materials in Blender. When the node system first came out, it was quite... because that is visual programming. If you've ever played with the shader editor, that is... visual programming, and there was a time at which it would have been easier just to use the sliders on the side and just stick with the basic stuff. But then once it got more fully, when it was more full featured, and you started to learn, these actually work, and it actually affects both render engines. There were certain quirks about it, and now it's absolutely amazing, and perhaps something like that will come to Godot in the future with their visual scripting.
It absolutely could be, and I'm sure that there are people out there who only use visual scripting who could do amazing stuff that is better than what I can do. Again, this is not it's terrible, so I'm not touching it. It's I find it very hard to teach a thing I don't believe in, right? And teaching a programming language, and I guess visual scripting is a programming language, that I don't really see the point of, just feels like a bad teaching and a bad learning experience. So my current plan is no, this may change.
I mean, just to interject there, the visual scripting in Unreal, by the way, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Blueprints is
but they've got everything there. So specifically, I just wanted to jump and say it's not just visual scripting. That's it's the old Godot implementation was a bit nah.
And even then, personally, I prefer to type it. But again, that's just me.
I suppose also GDScript being easier to understand than something like C++ is, with all of its caveats and null pointers and all the other fun that you can have with it. Blueprints somewhat protects you from a lot of that.
Yes.
Whereas GDScript being more straightforward,
because GDScript isn't quite as close to the metal.
No.
It's you're not quite as close to the raw machine code. You're a few levels of abstraction away, so you don't have to worry about.
And a lot of the C++ carries over from real C++, but Unreal kind of have their own flavour of C++, so you have to learn Unreal's flavour of. And of course, it might have been compiled with an older version of C++. If you've learned something that's in, I don't know what the things are. I don't know, C++ 23, if that's out, I don't know. But that might not be available.
Too many curly brackets.
Yeah, too many curly brackets. I've had the same with Blender with Python. So Blender's quite up to date with Python at the moment. I'm just going to launch it really quick. And I believe they actually have 3 points. I'm just going to have a look. Come on. So they have scripting 3.10. And I think 3.11 is just about to come out, if I remember correctly. So in that aspect, if you're using Python, Blender's actually pretty much up to date.
Yep.
But if you find something new, then it won't work unless you recompile Blender with a new Python. I just wait for them to switch over. They're always up to date with that sort of thing. Now, if you want to know about that, I will just show you really quick. So when you start up a new blend file, you're often on the layout tab at the top here. You just scroll along, or perhaps your resolution's low enough that you can see it. You've got the scripting workspace at the end, and we've got the Python console. It's this one here. So Shift F4. If you want to be super lazy, you can just move your cursor over here, Shift F4, and you can read out Python and just start coding in Python. Why not?
Yep. I actually had quite a lot of fun when I was visiting my girlfriend, playing with a Raspberry Pico and learning MicroPython to make a little toy for her kid, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, you should definitely learn any programming language that takes your fancy, including visual scripting. And
a lot of programming languages, it's transferable skills. There are some things that don't really exist in certain languages, but otherwise, once you've got one under your belt, it's relatively straightforward to hop over to a new language. There are certain rules that you can go through.
There's some syntax that can get annoying, like remembering that you have to put semicolons everywhere. Just you forget if you didn't grow up with it. But in general, yeah. I feel like we should talk about basic timeline expectations.
Sure.
So my plan is to get Rock Paper Toucan out to our lifetime members, because we don't have early access members for Godot for Everyone, over the next week. Because that one doesn't need a bunch of visual assets. I don't need to do that. After which, we need to spend some time... Well, while that's happening, Mikey's going to be working on 3D assets for Godot for Everyone. And then while that's happening, I can start working on the 2D assets. So there's going to be about a week of no video production there. And then back into recording 2D stuff and 3D stuff for Discovering Godot.
Yeah.
Not Discovering Godot. That's entirely wrong. Godot Action RPG.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at our rough timeline we've got in front of us. Whenever we start up a sort of getting into new projects and everything, it takes a little time to spool up and get deep back into it.
Yep.
As Jan said, I'll be making assets over the next couple of weeks, all ready for Jan to jump in and do the procedural dungeons in Godot. During that time, you're going to start work on rock, paper, scissors in the Godot for Everyone course. And then you're going to switch to some 2D asset creation.
Ready for Space Invader, so that the moment it goes, not only is there Legit Penguin and Space Duck, but if you want the other ones, here are the other ones.
Yeah. And timeline-wise, at the moment, what we're expecting is for the procedural dungeons, Space Invadux, which is the second module of Godot for Everyone, and the Blender dungeons, so actually going through with me and everything, to be roughly done by March. Have I said March correctly?
We think.
In March. In March.
As we're still spooling up, it's a little hard to get the actual rhythm accurate. So that may stretch, but that's currently the plan and the intention.
And our intention is next week to give you guys all an update with how things are progressing. So it's crazy. Sometimes you're like, this is going to take me a week to do. 2 days later, you're like, oh, I'm done.
And sometimes you hit a bug that takes you 3 days to figure out, and it turns out it's just a typo.
Or worst case scenario, it's only happened once. I don't intend it to ever happen again, but you notice a mistake like maybe 10 lectures in, and
you have to go back and re-record everything.
And you've got two options at that point. How breaking is it? How incompetent do you now look in front of everybody?
With coding, it's usually pretty breaking. 10 videos later, that's just going to trickle down.
We're going to have to rewrite this. For a beginner course, that's totally like a no-no, and we just have to bite the bullet and redo it. I have had an instance in a Blender course where it wasn't too bad. It was relatively easy to go, oh, well, this is a realistic problem that you're going to come across when modelling anyway. So, at this point, why don't we use this as an opportunity to learn how to correct that problem?
I remember I had a review from a student once.
It's Godot Getaway.
Who got really grumpy. It was on Godot Getaway as well, actually. He got really grumpy because why are you teaching me this and then changing it later if you know it's not the best way? And because in order to understand why it is the best way, you have to get it wrong first.
Yes.
You need to understand... an example for this will be in Rock, Paper, Toucans. We're going to learn if statements. we're not going to finish with if statements. We're going to finish with match statements, because match, or if you're not familiar with GDScript,
It's a
switch
switch,
statement. I've got, it's like I'm rapping. There's like a chorus at the end of each sentence.
What am I doing? We should do these in person more often.
We're going to finish with match because it's better for this case, but you should understand if else statements before you go to match, so that you can get a feel of what's better. So sometimes what's better for an educational course isn't what's better for a devlog or for a game.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that, okay, big mistakes should not make it into courses.
Yeah.
We try our best to do that.
Okay. An actual mistake that's a learning journey, or let's learn this way, now let's learn a different way that might be a little better for us.
So you can compare and contrast.
Is better than, oh, actually, we can't use physics for this.
Yeah, let's write our own physics engine. I suppose one of the biggest things is also understanding, and especially if you're new to this. So I know we have a lot of long-time viewers who are not new to this, and understand that failure is part of the progression. We were talking about this earlier when it comes to children learning. We were talking about our respective children actually going through stuff and understanding that failure or losing and having to collect your thoughts and work out a better way around is all part of the learning journey. And if you have a learning journey without failure, it can be quite a confidence knock when you're doing your own project and you have that point.
Yep.
Of failure and don't understand how to perhaps mentally get out of that hole. So yes, we try and bake in deliberate mistakes where possible, and and warn you guys
also
as well.
why we'd like to prototype before we record. A good example for this will be Godot Getaway. For those of you who don't know, Godot Getaway was a online multiplayer procedurally generated cops and robbers driving game,
or Scope Creep version 1.
Right. I remember showing Mikey this little driving game in a procedural city and saying, whatever happens, this can't be an online multiplayer game. And a week later, after playing, it's like, it's going to have to be an online multiplayer game, isn't it?
We wanted to make a cops and robbers game, ultimately, in a procedural city.
And then eventually we put in Electro Swing, because of course we did. But anyway, as we're sort of getting this together to test like how everything worked, I put in a little physics ball. And we have a client and a host, both on the same machine, but client and host. And the idea was the host is going to take the position of the client, and it's going to transmit its position, the position of the client and the position of the ball, every frame to the client. And Godot's handling it great. So host drives into the ball flies off. Client drives into the ball doesn't move.
Yeah.
And it took me a few days to figure out what was going on here. And it was actually quite a simple thing, but I hadn't grokked it. I hadn't quite figured it out. Mm-hmm. But rather than recreate that entire mistake in Godot Getaway, what we did is, in the video, I explain, we're not doing it this way, and here's why. If we do, here's a video of what that looks like, and explaining what's happening, rather than taking on a 2-week journey and then having to go back and undo everything. Yeah. So where there is an important mistake that will teach you something, but you don't really want to spend that much time on it, we'll sort of cheat around it. Yeah. Where it's a quick one and done, here's a great way of doing it, here's a better way of doing it, we'll do that.
Yes, definitely. And sometimes both solutions are valid.
Yeah.
There's often not a right way of doing something, it's the outcome that makes a difference.
Because primarily we're an education company, not a game company.
Yeah, very true. And another thing is, if you're making... Let's focus on a game rather than an asset for once. If you're making something unoptimal, but it has no gameplay impact because of the scale of your game,
yep,
it probably doesn't matter. If you're making something not optimal and your idea is to scale the game, where that problem becomes too big and it slows the game down, or something else along those lines, that then is a problem. So learning best practice and when not to use certain techniques is important.
And frankly, just letting the student know this isn't optimal. You can get away with it in a small game, but it's probably not a good idea. I'm trying so hard not to boop your nose right now. It's so weird being in the same space as you.
Aww. Awkward silence.
I know, that derailed everything, didn't it? Okay, so that's the basic plan going forward and the way we want to deal with mistakes. I do have prototypes of all these games. They are going to have to be changed slightly because they're written in older versions and they now have bugs in them.
Can I ask you a live question?
Can I give you a dead answer?
Yeah, sure. I just thought I'd preempt it with, you might not like the question. Is there any plan to put...
How will I know if I like the question before you've asked it?
I could have asked it before the stream.
Ah!
There we go. Is there any plan for these games to appear on itch?
Probably.
So people can see what the actual final project is? Yeah. I thought that was a good idea, but...
I mean, we've done it with the last few projects. Yeah, definitely. No, I'd very much like to do that because, if nothing else, if you don't want the course but you want to play the game, here's a free game. Like, have a Space Invaders clone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And if you had that question, there we go. We've answered it. We have to be quite tight tonight on time because I've got to get Jan back to his house. His
I don't live here.
No, he doesn't live in the basement, locked away all the rest of the week.
We haven't finished digging a basement.
Yes, it would be a very shallow grave.
Whoa! Easy.
Anyway,
happy Halloween to you too.
Oh yeah, wrong time of year. Easter. He'll pop out. So
yeah, it'll take me 3 days. Come on. Come on.
I set you up for it. I did. I would be lying otherwise. Yes. So we've got about 10 minutes left of the stream. So if you guys have any questions at the moment, hey, we do something stupid and the viewer count goes out.
Any concerns, questions?
Yeah.
Interpretive dances, jingles.
Yeah, we're going to be not tight on time, but we're going to finish on the hour today.
Yeah.
So you've actually now got 9 minutes plus stream delay.
That doesn't help.
It's not my problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to boot that button on time today because you're here.
I am. I still say it though.
Yeah. So, anything else? What have you been playing recently?
I've started playing Ark again.
Yeah.
I've been playing The Long Dark.
I don't like Ark.
He doesn't like Ark. I've been playing The Long Dark.
Yep.
I played a little bit of Stellaris. I'm very bad at that game.
I've not played Stellaris. Well, have I?
I don't read the stories, which kind of defeats the point of the game.
Is Stellaris the Terraria sequel, basically?
No. Stellaris is a 4X empire builder in space.
Yeah, I've not played that then. I think I've got it. I think it's in one of my massive collections.
You might be thinking of Starbound.
Hey, I've got the first 4 letters right, at least.
No.
Star.
Ste.
Oh. Didn't even... So Mike's going back to school, and...
Today on stream, Mike tries to count to 4.
What was I saying the other day? I'm going to start using different words for verbs. We were chatting the other day. We just make anything a verb.
Does anyone want this seat? Have you guys played Domekeeper? I haven't, but I've seen...
Yes! Domekeeper's amazing.
I've seen a lot of footage of it being played by... I forget who it was. Christopher Rod, I think. It looks amazing. Really well made.
It's very odd. Often when you get trailers of games, you're like, well, I personally look at it and go, and make a judgment. Am I going to enjoy that? Is it a game like I've had before? And I looked at it being played, and I'm like, I'm going to like this game.
Oh yeah, no, it looks amazing.
It is a lot of fun. I got it on
a really interesting
just before Christmas.
Gameplay loop, some wonderful gameplay design decisions.
Yeah. Very straightforward. There's a time pressure to get back up. And
fresh,
the randomness,
unique challenges, just really well done.
Yeah.
And the options at the beginning, so you can really tailor the kind of experience you want.
Yes, I wanted to bring up it because I noticed they actually use... It's one of the few games that I've seen that does use Godot, that has a Godot splash screen, which they're under no obligation to use.
No, although you are supposed to mention Godot in the credits.
Yeah, I think they should say...
Somewhere in there you should put it in.
I genuinely think they should have it as a splash screen, because that's how you know Unity and Unreal is, because they come up.
Right.
It's one of the first things you see.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to a whole new slew of Godot games out there, because Godot 4 is a lot of fun. I mean, Godot 3 was a lot of fun. Godot 4 really has a lot of potential. What are you doing?
There's another Godot game, and I think it's called Delta V.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. It's a space mining game set in the rings of Saturn, and your base is on Enceladus, I think. And I actually really enjoyed that game as well. It's quite a... I wouldn't call it an exciting game, but it passed the time for me. It's quite a slow game. Yeah, Delta V. So like this, as in change in velocity, like that. Some people call it Delta 5. It's not. It's Delta V.
V being, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's Godot. If anybody knows any other Godot games that we should check out, it would be, ones
There's
that
been a few. Nice, Roderick.
I don't know the alts.
Yeah, he can't. What was that?
That's what I can do. I mean, I could go through them all.
Yeah.
Squared.
It doesn't work.
I found squared. Look, I found squared.
Rotato. It's got a. Oh, in stereo. Very nice.
No, I've now got asterisk. I've lost it.
Yes, you have.
In more ways.
You were looking for Delta V.
I was, but I remembered it was called Delta V. It needs to be installed, doesn't it?
No.
Have I even got it? Is it?
You don't have it. You don't own it.
I definitely do.
Then it's not in Steam.
There it is. Oh, it's called Rings of Saturn. They've changed the name.
No, it's actually the Delta symbol.
Oh. Yeah, even better.
You're so good at this. There are a couple of others. There was a political simulator. I forget the name of.
I've played 25 hours of it. It's not that boring.
Yeah, it's so boring. I mean, there's a whole discussion there of when people talk about games, they talk about fun, but actually fun isn't actually a barometer for games. My War, is that what it's called? This War of Mine. No, My War. This War of Mine. What was the name of that thing? Do you have it?
World of the Wars?
No. It's
War of the Worlds.
You're a survivor in a war-torn city. I think it's This War of Mine. With a bunch of survivors, and it's very, very grim. And it has a lot of things like starvation, depression. Yeah, This War of Mine. It's an amazing game. It's not fun. Like, it's really quite grim.
I've played a similar game on my iPhone, and it was a zombie survival game, but it didn't have anything. It just went click, 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 and gave you some stats.
Yeah, no, that's not this. This you have to actually manage survivors. You have to go out at night and try and find supplies. Sometimes you'll go to a place and there might be an old couple begging you not to take their water, but you've got 4 people at home, and it's that kind of decision. Like, that's not fun, but it's really compelling.
I've just added it to my wish list. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
don't play that when you need cheering up.
How do you know I don't find that fun?
Because I met you.
Yeah. Well, so I know plenty of people that the whole act of grinding, doing a very repetitive task, is not necessarily fun, but
the number goes up.
The number goes up, or it's just. I often play Minecraft when my brain is dead. I just go into a mine, and it can be quite rhythmical as you're going duf 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 duf, and it just. There's a nice song that goes along with that, but I'm not going to sing it, not today. But it's one of those things. I don't know why. It's just quite cathartic. Yeah.
Well, it could be cathartic. It could be meditative.
Maybe.
It's fun to say.
A lot of Minecraft music is like meditation music.
Yeah, very meditative.
Meditative. There's too many titatives.
He syncopated it. With a picture of Notch's
Minecraft!
face.
When your brain dead.
I mean, I do enjoy Minecraft, although I haven't played it properly for about a decade now.
Yeah. I play it mainly with the kids, and what usually ends up happening is I go off down the mines. Dad goes down the mines, down to mines, comes back with diamonds.
Kids have burnt the house down.
William's come along, my youngest, gone, oh, I've got a bucket of lava.
I am really looking forward to and trying so hard not to get overhyped by Nightingale. I think that's what it's called.
I'm going to have a look.
Let's find out if it's called that. Yep. Which is a gas lamp fantasy Victorian survival game set in the Feyworlds.
Oh. What's the Fey Realms?
The realms of the Fey. The fairy.
Okay.
It's got some interesting mechanics in it. One, it's single player or co-op multiplayer. They're not putting PvP in, from what I can tell.
I think that's a good move.
2, there's an interesting mechanic where there's a bunch of procedural realms. So it's not one big map. You pick your home realm, you build your base there, or your settlement. But you can make or find cards, which you put together into a deck that you put into a rift gate, and it generates the world based on those cards.
Oh, nice.
And then when you're done, you come back with the resources and the dead people.
It looks a very interesting game. Roderick, I have never naturally, so not without cheating, managed to get to the end yet. In Minecraft.
I did get to the end, but it was when they first introduced it. It was a lot easier.
Well, you
I had the beta,
6 or something. Yeah.
I remember when they added Enderman and all my base designs stopped working.
Lovely. Awesome.
Yeah, Nightingale looks amazing. I don't believe that's done in Godot, but if I'm wrong, that'd be nice.
They had early access to Godot 4 to get the
They
game.
had early access to Godot 5, but look at it. But...
Oh, it says it's similar to Project Zomboid and Valheim. So I probably like it.
Yeah, I mean, what Roderick's not telling you, that's 10 years in one game.
That's the playtime.
Yeah. I'm glad they added the end just for people who didn't like the open-endedness, because for a lot of people that kind of, there's no goal, just do what you want to do, gets very stale after a while. I can play those games for about a month, and then I was like, okay, I'm done now.
It's interesting. All of the ages of children play Minecraft completely differently to one another. My daughter's incredibly creative, so she'll just build stuff. Kareen's son will just go off and do lots of random things. He'll find something that's been built by a YouTuber probably, and go off and build all of that and replicate it with redstone and everything else. The best I've done is a redstone. What's the stuff that makes paper? Sugarcane in the game. Where it gets to a certain height with an observer block and knocks it through. And I thought, oh, that's quite clever. The fact that you can learn to program and make functional computers in Minecraft.
I did that with a ladder.
With a ladder.
Yeah. The sugarcane grows, it can't have a block next to it, it falls down.
Ah, nice. I wonder if that's still... I don't
when they think you're high-tech is the time to go low-tech.
Yeah, and absolutely fantastic. The fact that people can approach that game in so many different ways.
Yep.
So, on that note, it's time to drop you back off
It is.
home.
It is. It's
Weird
time to
intonation.
stop the music. It's time to turn out the lights.
I did that earlier.
You did. So yeah, thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. Thank you for coming to my party and for the jelly and the ice cream and the pizza. That was nice.
Pizza and cake.
Pizza and cake was good. So yeah, we shall be back next week.
Yeah, next week. Give you an update of how we're progressing. Until then, bye.
That was so mean of me. Yeah, so thanks, everybody. Bye! Press it!
Look, same room.
Press it!
Make me.
Press it!
Ah! Oh, yeah, I need to press that one too.